Hello, everyone. My name is Jordan Smith, and I'm the voice and the astrologer for this YouTube channel, Nonconformist Conscience. This week, on January 3rd, 2026, we have a super full moon happening in the sign of Cancer. This is the fourth super full moon in a row. So, before I get into this, I want to let you guys know you have until tomorrow, December 31st, to purchase one of my holiday specials. So if you haven't done that and you've been interested in it, you have a little more than 24 hours left to do so. Um, and I will post a link below in the description if you are wanting to book one of those sessions, or packages. So let's talk about this. This is a super full moon, like I said. It's the fourth in a row. And a super full moon is where the moon is closer to the earth. So if we think about this during the full moon, um, the gravitational pull on the ocean, right, from the moon, pulls the tide up. It makes bigger waves, and this is definitely on par for a Cancer full moon that is in close proximity to Jupiter retrograde in Cancer. There is an intensification and a magnifying of emotional dynamics. And why is that? It's reflecting how we are meant to really come face to face with emotional dynamics within ourselves. That way we can utilize them in order to grow. In evolutionary astrology, we talk about the water triad, which is Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, and their houses and their planets that coincide with them. And what that is really reflecting is the evolutionary journey of the soul through the process of um, evolving through our emotional dynamics. We evolve through our emotional dynamics, period. Um, that is why it takes so long to evolve. Okay. Okay. I had to pause that. One of my kiddos. Um, so that's why it takes so long for us to evolve. Think about the experiences that you have and the emotional dynamics that play out in your life. If we are suppressing our emotions, well, that takes us longer to evolve. And the times that we live in, how society is structured through laws, religion, philosophy, um, rules, regulations, beliefs, values, that has really been indicative of teaching and shaping and conditioning us around this binary of um, good emotions versus bad emotions, when really all emotions are natural. That includes anger, grief, joy, ecstasy. These are pure emotions that have their own psychological dynamics that go with them. But yet, many of us are taught that anger is not okay. And what I want to say about this, because it's the biggest one that I can think of, is that really anger is it's a secondhand emotion, right? It's where we experience a loss of control or a boundary being crossed or an injustice, but yet it's really when we allow ourselves to experience the totality of whatever pure emotion is surfacing, in this case, anger. It's about being responsible with how you direct that. What do you do with that? Lashing out, projecting, um, trying to hurt others, you name it. Uh, that is not utilizing that in a healthy way. Utilizing anger in a healthy and a constructive and a responsible way would be where I think of the Epstein sexual assault survivors. They're angry, and rightfully so. There's been an injustice. Boundaries were crossed. People aren't hearing them. People were dismissive of them. And yet they have utilized their anger for empowerment, not to overpower or to disempower others. They've utilized it to strengthen themselves in order to have courage, right? These are these kind of Martian Aries um, archetypes meeting with the emotions held within that water trinity. So there's these deep lessons with the moon, the full moon and Cancer with this. Um, Speaking to any type of pure emotion that is surfacing right now. Again, it's a full moon. There's something that is wanting to be eliminated, to be thrown off from the past in order for us to have a full integrative emotional experience. And so there's really this call for us to not suppress. Whenever we're suppressing a pure emotion, what tends to happen is it becomes displaced and distorted. And that's where we see projection because we're not in touch with it, right? And this full moon is sitting across the sky from a sun in Capricorn. It's actually sitting across the sky from a stellium of Capricorn, which I'll show you in a minute in the chart. The Capricorn is very much, whenever we're looking to it through as the polarity of Cancer, it's really about this need for self-reflection, accountability, responsibility, and self-mastery. It's also learning what our own unique boundaries are around our limits, around who we are. And what I want to say about that is that the boundary lies within the one who creates it, not within the one that it is expressed to, right? And I think that that's where a lot of people have a misunderstanding about what a boundary really is. A boundary, whenever spoken, um, I don't want to engage in this. I'm not going to talk about this. I don't like whenever you talk to me like this, or I don't want to participate in fill in the blank for my own emotional and mental well-being. If someone is not honoring that, then it's up to you who creates that boundary to create stabilization, right? Um, that's where you can draw a line in the sand and say, no, I've expressed this. The feedback you're giving me is that you are um, not honoring that. You're not listening to me. Um, you're not respecting me. And so, therefore, I have to make a choice, right? To do what is necessary for my own emotional, mental, psychological, spiritual well-being. And that means that you have to make a choice for yourself. It's when we abandon our own boundaries that anger can arise. And then there's some people that don't like boundaries because they don't have them themselves. And so they get angry whenever someone, you know, expresses a boundary. And yet again, that's feedback. It's saying something to you. It's giving you information in order for you to make a correct Capricorn judgment call. All right. So there's this other dynamic with Cancer. It is cardinal, right? Cardinal energy is two steps forward, one step back. And this full moon really states that. I'm going to share this with you. I'll bring this chart up for a second and then I'll speak and then take it down and bring it back up again. But so we've got the moon and it's opposing um, the sun, which that's indicative of a full moon if you are new to astrology. But yet, like I said, it's cardinal energy. Two steps forward, one step back, meaning that in cardinal energy, there is a evolutionary cycle that is wanting to come to a close and also one that is wanting to be initiated. The initiation is that one step forward. And yet within Cancer, it is all about what feels secure and stable for each one of us. And yet we can outgrow what that is, what those dynamics are, what those structures, Capricorn, are. And so we have to initiate something. We have to take a step forward. And yet that induces a lot of insecurity because it's new, it's uncomfortable, right? Anytime you've done something new, it feels a little uncomfortable because it's not been experienced yet. And so there's a lot of this coming up with this full moon, especially over the next 2 weeks. And not only is the one step forward, two steps back, indicative of the cardinal energy, but we've also got Venus here, balsamic to the sun. And then we also have Mars and a new phase to the sun. All right. And this really is reflective of this archetype that is very much intensified of one step forward, two steps back. And so what I want to say about this is that it's okay to feel insecure when you're initiating something, when you're throwing something off from the past, when you're recognizing something. Um, it takes time for mastery, right? When we're going to the polarity of Cancer, which is Capricorn, that is about self-mastery. The, mountain goat is having to climb. We can think of it as a marathon, not a sprint, right? And so there's this kind of dynamic of I'm initiating something because I know this is what I need emotionally, Cancer. And yet it's inducing a lot of insecurity because it's almost like a child that's learning how to walk for the first time. You fall down, you stumble, but yet the child gets back up. Okay. And so there can be this stumbling and getting back up and stumbling and getting back up. And with the Virgo and Capricornian energy mixed into all of this with the South Node in Virgo, ruled by Mercury, that is a part of the stellium. Um, it's really teaching us that within mastering something, it's not going to be perfect. Perfection is an illusion. I speak about this ad nauseum. Um, that is an illusion. It's not real. And that is also the source of contention and disruption within so many of us because we get down on ourselves when we don't execute something perfectly, when we falter, when we make a mistake. Um, and what this is actually meant to teach us in a natural way, the Virgo South Node with all of the Capricorn, is that the value is in the effort, Virgo, that you get up, you dust yourself off, and you learn a little bit more about how to improve upon what it is that you're meant to be initiating right now through throwing off the past. There's also this culminating dynamic that is wanting to happen right now. Saturn and Pisces is ruling all of the Capricorn energy. Saturn is also balsamic to Neptune. All right. That's another, you know, symbol that is being reflected in this transit of the full moon through these astrological conversations that nothing can really um, culminate unless we put one foot in front of the other, right? We can't take steps to release, surrender, culminate the past without initiating something first. All right. So, Cancer can induce insecurity. It is the emotional dynamics that we experience moment to moment, day to day, that are helping our soul to evolve. All right. So, with this full moon, you really want to look at where is this full moon falling in your own natal chart? What is your moon doing? What's on your fourth house cusp? What are the rulers in your chart? Are they interacting with anything in the full moon chart? Because that gives you a lot of context about what it is that is wanting to come up for you. The other thing that I want to speak about whenever it comes to Cancer is that there is a, it is about how we nurture ourselves, how we validate ourselves, and how we feel secure within ourselves, right? Oftentimes when there's like a lot of Cancerian dynamics um, in someone's chart, it can be where they are learning this. They haven't mastered it yet. Um, and that's part of their evolutionary journey, meaning that they might be outsourcing their security and their validation um, from others. It can be a group, a community, um, family. It can be a partner. It can be work, you name it. And really, the call is to learn how to do that from within. How do you nurture yourself? So this full moon is bringing up all types of dynamics of where we are really called to reflect, Capricorn, on how we go about feeling secure within ourselves. The opposition between Cancer and Capricorn is also really indicative of the archetype of the crab, right? Especially with that opposition. This can be where we're really needing to honor our own emotional process. We could be coming out of our shell and interacting with a lot of people and feeling overwhelmed or destabilized. And just like the crab, it goes back into its shell in order to create stability. So there can be this imbalance of social interactions with private time for yourself. And so it's this call to really um, reflect on what is coming up for you. Where can you harmonize and where can you master if this is something that you're needing to master, how to create stability publicly, socially, and privately. That way there is a harmonization that happens, right? So that could be one thing that's wanting to be thrown off as well. The moon is in very close proximity to Jupiter retrograde. Um, Jupiter retrograde is ruled by the moon. It's at 21 degrees during the full moon, and the full moon is at 13 degrees of Cancer. So it is balsamic as well. Again, another culminating signature. And here's the thing, on March 10th, 2026, um, Jupiter is going to station direct at 15 degrees. So it's going to be within 2 degrees of where this full moon is at. This is really speaking to there's a process that's wanting to unfold that is being illuminated right now by the light of the sun shining down on the moon. And it's in that balsamic close proximity to Jupiter where things are magnified. And yet, Jupiter right now is saying, and speaking and reflecting to each one of us that our biggest teacher, Jupiter, right now, are our emotions and our emotional patterns. Okay. So this is helping us to liberate, to revisit, to review emotional patterns, emotional dynamics from the past in order to throw them off. So the magnification or the intensity of them is really reflecting that this is something to be utilized as your teacher, that there's something actually really empowering about coming into an awareness. And the awareness comes through utilizing the polarity of Cancer, which is Capricorn, to reflect, to look at what it is that's coming up. What does that mean for you? What are you seeing about your own emotional patterns? So it's the teacher. And Jupiter is known as the great benefic, but yet there is this less unknown kind of dynamic when it comes to Jupiter, that in order to receive the gift that Jupiter has for each of us, we have to let go of something first. And once we do, we are immediately, especially whenever it is dealing with our own evolutionary growth, we are immediately validated that it was the thing that we were supposed to do. It was the choice, Mars, that we were meant to make. Um, and that is part of the Jupiter gift, is that immediate validation of that. So the other thing is it's a universal experience. The thing that really helps us a lot understanding our own emotional dynamics and patterns is how we interact with others. So that's where we're relating to others. And how we relate to others is indicative of how we relate to ourselves. Venus is in Capricorn. It is balsamic to the sun, so it is opposing the moon as well. Something is wanting to be wrapped up around how we relate to ourselves and our relational dynamics with others. All right. So there can be these Capricornian tests. Okay. My teacher, I've said this so many times on here, and I'm going to say it again. My teacher, he taught me a long time ago, whenever it comes to Virgo, which is the lunar south node right now, and Capricorn, we when we make the choice to purge prior emotional dynamics, in this case, Moon and Cancer in tandem with the lunar south node, emotional dynamics from the past, we can feel like we're done with it, that that we are not doing what we once did because there's been this awareness through the reflection and the accountability and this perseverance of this very advantageous journey that we're on to climb the mountain, right? Of really being sovereign, especially in our relationships or our relational dynamics, dealing with emotional patterns. Um, and yet, somewhere along our evolutionary journey, we will be tested. And it is a Capricorn test, is what he said to me. And what that test reflects is when that dynamic is coming back up and we're interfacing it again in our relationships, the test becomes one of self-mastery, Capricorn. And the self mastery is to say, fuck no, that is not who I am anymore. And it's about making a different choice, making a correct judgment call, Capricorn. Um, because Capricorn also is connected to wisdom. And wisdom comes through direct experience. Okay. the interface that we have in our relationships, Venus balsamic to the sun, opposing the moon, right? Where we get to understand through whatever is happening in our relationships thus far, there is a lot of wisdom that can be gleaned through each experience we have when we choose to self-reflect. What was going on? Why did I attract this into my life? Or why did I act in that way? Or Capricorn, because this can be coming up on an emotional level, is why am I judging myself so harshly, especially with Venus and Capricorn right now? Um, and for each one of us, it is very much about looking at this, reflecting on it, and utilizing our wisdom, Capricorn, from these experiences to continue to have improvement. South Node in Virgo. All right. So I do want to speak a bit more about judgment, shame, guilt, these types of experiences and how we relate to ourselves can really be highlighted right now during this lunation and over the next 2 weeks. Venus in Capricorn, Mars in Capricorn too, um, can really be bringing up, especially with the moon in Cancer. Cancer, childhood, our ancestry, our clan, our family. It can be bringing up these experiences of where we are afraid of judgment, or other people's judgments about us, or even just being our authentic self, Jupiter in close proximity to that moon. Because we might have been judged harshly by family or by society, Capricorn, whenever we were younger. So it's bringing up these kind of wounds around this. Jupiter is still square to Chiron and Aries, right? And I talked about this the other week. I did a video on this, and you can check that out if you want, if you haven't already. But this is really where we can be reflecting and memories hit us like a lightning bolt, right? We've got Uranus uh, activated in this chart. It is sextiling Saturn in Pisces and Neptune. Saturn is the ruler of all of the Capricorn um, dynamics. So we can be really all of a sudden out of nowhere recalling something that happened to us that affected our self-worth, Taurus, and where we receive judgments, where we internalize those judgments, and where they became beliefs about ourselves. And so maybe we've harshly judged ourselves, and maybe it comes out as harshly judging others or being critical of ourselves, being critical of others, or always being critical and always complaining. That's a South Node in Virgo dynamic with the twist of Capricorn, right? Especially with Mercury and Capricorn ruling that south node. So we can even be seeing this through the information that we take in right now. Lots of people are just, they're constantly complaining, they're constantly criticizing, they're always, speaking about things, about what's wrong with the world, which I happen to agree with this. But yet the crux of it is like, is there really anything? Are you doing anything about it? Are they doing anything about it? Is there change that's being initiated, or are we just complaining to complain because maybe we're getting our worth out of people empathizing with us, sympathizing with us, validating us? And that can really be this call of, are you doing that for yourself, right? Where can you do this for yourself? Where can you um, nurture yourself? Where can you find a sense of security within yourself by validating that? By also validating um, the dynamic within Capricorn is understanding when we're reflecting about things of this nature and how we have internalized guilt, shame, judgment um, for being ourselves, right? Feeling like we're doing something wrong whenever we know that we're not. Um, this is where there's this self-mastery component around accountability. And accountability is knowing what is yours and what is not yours. All right. So, yes, that should not have happened. That should not have um, occurred. It was wrong. There was an injustice. And yet, I'm the person as an adult who can heal myself. That's not going to happen outside of me. Yes, I can utilize therapy or astrology, um, or different tools, but yet that's really going to come from inside of ourselves. And that is the mastery of learning how to become secure within oneself. That's also really the sun illuminating the moon in Cancer is really indicative of this emotional maturation process for each one of us right now. Whatever Jupiter and the moon are bringing up and magnifying, allowing it to be our teacher. Whatever's coming up for you in your relational dynamics that is wanting to culminate, Venus, balsamic to the sun, is teaching us about our interracial dynamics and our emotional patterns and how the only person who can change you is you. We don't have control over what other people do, but we do have a choice. And that choice of free will um, is really part of this ongoing emotional maturation process that goes out and spans each one of our lifetimes, right? We don't just get to this point I'm about to be 37. Oh, I'm done emotionally maturing. Like this is evolving. It's going to be evolving over my whole lifetime, over your whole lifetime. Some people get stuck. They don't ever do it, you know? Um, and that's where if they have, a lot of trauma or wounds, or a lot of Cancerian dynamics, it's where they can be emotionally arrested and not realizing that they're needing um, to nurture themselves and to emotionally mature, right? So there is this emotional maturation process and the self-mastery and these really big tests that can be coming up where we're interfacing with some type of dynamic that we thought we were done with that we're not. And that's also really just part of Virgo in general. Virgo, I love it because whenever it's naturally expressed, it's where through the trine from Virgo to Capricorn, which there's a lot of that going on, I'm going to show you in a minute, is where there can be this natural humility, where one can self-reflect through Capricorn. And through Virgo, they can see what it is that actually needs to be improved upon on an emotional level. And then they are self-determined Capricorn to execute that. Okay. And yet, Virgo, because it is about purging and improving, it can be annoying. Like, oh my gosh, I thought I was done with this. I can give an example about this. I have a South Node in Virgo and a stellium in Capricorn as well, as many of you know. And I have a moon in Libra at 29 degrees in the sixth house. So, um, a lot of things I've interfaced with in this lifetime are dynamics around feeling like I deserve something, Virgo, masochism, um, that I'm not good enough, that I deserve to be punished or humiliated or, um, you know, to be treated not so nicely. That for me reached an all-time high whenever I was in an extremely abusive relationship and the crisis got so extreme, and a lot of you guys know this because I've spoken about this, is that I was confronted with a life or death situation. Someone attempted to commit femicide against me and ended up committing femicide against someone else that same day. Okay. For me, it took that 29-degree Libra moon in the sixth house extreme crisis for me to start looking at why did I attract this? And for me, I didn't listen to myself. I was repelled by this person and I was giving my authority over to this person. And then I've had these other relationships as I have been improving upon these dynamics on an emotional level, these emotional patterns I have really meant to liberate from guilt, shame that has been internalized, that's actually not mine, that's been projected on me. So I attracted a lot of more sadistic kind of people, right? Which is what can happen with the Virgo Pisces archetype. Not always. In my case, that is part of my evolutionary journey. But yeah, I thought after that, I was young. I was, 20. This was who I had my first child with. Um, I got to this place where I really became um, I was working in mental health and I was going to therapy. I'd been in therapy since I was 12 at that point. I was really starting to work on all of this. And I thought that I was done with it. And then another wave hit. It was around so that occurred during my uh, first nodal return. Then my nodal opposition in my 20s, I got hit with another wave of this. But what it did is it was the same dynamic, not as extreme, but it was showing up in a different type of relational way. It was through the family system, right? And then I worked through that because I continuously was doing Capricorn and Virgo, where I was reflecting, well, what's my part in this? Where can I hold myself accountable? Because the only person I could control was me, right? Um, and so I learned there was a lot of wisdom that I gained around all of these kind of dynamics. And then I got Pollyanna again and thought, oh, I'm done with this. And then another wave hit. But yet, what I want to say, the Virgo archetype, it's like it will, like I said, you'll think that you're done with the dynamic, that you have mastered it, Capricorn, that you've really, I'm not ever gonna do that again. And guess what? I didn't make those choices again, but yet it still confronted me just in a different way, right? Through a friendship, an acquaintance, work. Whereas in the past, it was romantic partner, early childhood, I experienced it too. And then it really highlighted in my mid to late 20s into my Saturn return. But yet each time, this is the kicker, each time that I've experienced this, I've been able to utilize the past experiences and the wisdom that I gleaned from those. And each time I was able to confront it earlier, I was able to make better judgment calls. I was able to state boundaries or cultivate things. And the biggest thing with the Virgo dynamic, lunar south node in Virgo, is I realized in a deep and profound way that the projections or the statements or people trying to hurt, harm, whatever, um, I knew it wasn't about me and I didn't internalize it anymore. I actually have compassion whenever I see that happen. Um, Not even just with myself, but with other people, because what that is reflecting is that someone is deeply, deeply wounded. They're wounded, they're hurt. And it's a lot of energy and a lot of pure emotion. And that I can have compassion for. Yet, having compassion doesn't negate from me honoring my own sovereignty and my own well-being. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is, do I think that it's going to be any type of extremity like this for anyone? Maybe some people. It depends on how much you've denied, those dynamics within your own emotional patterns. Um, but I'm bringing it up because it really is indicative of the Capricornian test that you will get tested, especially with the South Node in Virgo, with this full moon over the next 2 weeks. Something that you felt like you had dealt with, that you had mastered, is going to come up, and don't let it shake you, right? It is about being your own authority, Capricorn, validating yourself, being secure within yourself, not feeling guilt, not being responsible for other people's behavior or reactions or emotional patterns, right? It is about knowing that you are responsible for you and not anyone else. And then you can take the wisdom from the other experiences and you can apply it. So that is really indicative of Venus balsamic to the sun. And yet Mars is in a new phase to the sun. So we get to apply Capricorn wisdom in order to make a correct judgment call, Capricorn, to initiate a new cycle, Mars conjunct the sun in a new phase. And as we do that, that helps us to throw off the past, the moon opposing all of this, and it helps to validate us to feel more secure. I can take care of me. I can nurture me. I can make correct judgment. I can, I do have wisdom. I have direct experience with this, right? And Saturn and Pisces ruling all of this is where the healing happens. Capricorn, to me, is an advantageous sign whenever it is naturally expressed because it is about the long climb, right? The the journey of mastery and maturation. And yet, what I don't think people often talk about is that Scorpio is known as alchemy, and yet Capricorn is the alchemist. What does that mean? What is this reflecting in this full moon? It's reflecting that Capricorn as the alchemist is where we each have the potential to transform and make our own magic from the past. What once felt like poison can now become your potion, right? It can be uncomfortable, it can induce some insecurity because it can be triggering or it can bring things up. But this is really this opportunity during this full moon and the next 2 weeks, and even up to March 10th when Jupiter stations direct, to really experience being the alchemist in your own life, right? And there's something that feels extremely healing about that to me, Saturn and Pisces. Um, the last two things I want to say is that here we have um, a, some people call it an envelope, other people call it oh my goodness, what is the word? A mystic rectangle, okay? And a mystic rectangle is where two sextiles and two trines form a rectangle. So we have the moon sextiling the south node. The south node is trining all of the Capricorn. All of the Capricorn is sextiling the north node, and then the north node is trining that moon. And before I get into that, the other thing I want to point out to you guys, which I will touch on at the end, is Cassandra in Aries is in a T square with all of this energy. So, what is this mystic rectangle reflecting? Well, archetypally, a mystic rectangle is where there's an immense amount of potential, and yet, because there's sextiles and trines, it can make us to where if we're not doing the Capricorn Cancer work right now, we just stay stuck in a rut because it's easy to do that, right? To stay in the known and the familiar. But yet those trines and those sextiles speak to the potential, the potentiality of an immense amount of healing, growth, and self-mastery, maturation on an emotional level, um, when we consciously utilize them. So the moon sextiling that south node. Things that you thought that you were done with are inevitably going to surface, right? It's going to show you exactly where you need to improve upon emotional dynamics and patterns. It can feel fucking annoying, Virgo. Like, I thought I was done with this. It's coming back up. It's just showing up in a different way, through a different relationship, through a different dynamic. And yet, Jupiter is saying, this is your teacher. What are you going to do? And so there's an integrative process of the past, South Node in Virgo, meaning the present, the moon. And yet, that South Node is trining all of the Capricorn. Mercury in Capricorn is ruling that. There's a lot of information around your own wisdom, Mercury in Capricorn, that you can apply to the here and now with whatever it is that is coming up for you. And it's going to be initiating a new cycle, right? While simultaneously or paradoxically culminating something. And that is the test, right? The test is, how are you going to apply your discernment, Virgo, Pisces, to make a correct judgment call, to initiate a new cycle through making a new choice, Mars, new phase to the sun. And then all of that Capricorn is sextiling the North Node in Pisces, which speaks to, when we do this, there is, well, what I will say is that North Node is also representing the new choice, which is indicative of Neptune ruling that as well. The new choice around what it is we need to surrender to, where we might need to release control, or expectations of outcomes, where we are needing to just allow things to be where it is that we are, um, what it is that we're needing to heal. All right. And that does come from when we make that new choice through discernment and correct judgment, through applying our wisdom to whatever situation is happening, that actually initiates that new cycle. That is the new choice. And in it's one that is meant to be rooted in love, compassion, unconditional love, compassion, empathy. But that also doesn't mean to become a container of someone else's stuff or to repeat the old cycles, right? Because that's where we can then experience disillusionment and crisis to force us to start applying self-mastery and to emotionally mature. And then the North Node trining that moon is really indicative of how there is a healing within our identity, our emotional identity, within our emotional dynamics and patterns that can happen. And that is the mystic rectangle. There is a very spiritual component. This is where, for some of us, we really are going to be called to align our will with Source's will, right? There can be something that we know that we need to do that is necessary, and yet we really don't want to do it, but we know we need to, and we know that we have to. And it's like a whisper from within the soul, right? This inner voice that is connected to source that's like, this is the way to go. And so it's about releasing the control of the past and utilizing that higher intelligence that is coming through you in order to do what it is that you know that you need to do when you are being tested. Lastly, Cassandra in Aries at 13 degrees is square the moon and the sun. Technically, she is square all of the Capricorn as well. For some people with this Cassandra dynamic, there can be a conversation that is meant to be had where you're needing to reclaim your voice, where you're needing to speak truth, where you're needing to utilize your own inner knowledge as a way to create that necessary action. And it can be where you're like, I don't know. There can be this like, I feel confused, even though you know, you're intuitive that this is the right thing to do. And then on the flip side, it's, should I really do this? I don't know if I should do this. Is this the right thing? And it's really, you've got to trust yourself. A lot of this is about having trust and faith in yourself. So for some people, the inner dynamic, the inner voice um, within you, that in your intuition and your instinct is saying there's a conversation that is necessary that I need to have. And you can be afraid. A lot of fears can be coming up. Um, it's ruled by Mars and Capricorn, right? It's like this is where your sovereignty can be, where you are um, reclaiming your personal voice of authority, right? You're speaking truth. This hurt me. I don't like that. This is what's going on. And some people might not believe you. Some people might. People who don't believe you, not your people. For other people, there is a paradox within this Cassandra. Sometimes courage can be, especially whenever there's an emotional pattern of the past of being reactive. For some people, especially in the face of lies, deception, projections, people not believing you, hearing you, seeing you, sometimes power. lies in understanding that the final answer is silence, right? That we can validate ourselves and our truth, and it doesn't always have to be spoken because it can rest on its own. All right. I think about some people who are trauma survivors who have spoken out against people who are very public or have a big following or this or that, and the projections come their way, and yet they said it once, they got the feedback, and there's something about maintaining their innocence and their sovereignty and their own authority by choosing to not say anything because that's actually something that's nurturing them because they know the truth. And with Cassandra, a huge lesson on that Cassandra journey, which Cassandra speaks to some people, it doesn't to others, right? But there is this really deep lesson when Cassandra is evolving that Cassandra complex. Um, it's where one knows that the truth doesn't need to be defended. So that square from Cassandra to the Capricorn to the Cancer can be where you're having to make a new choice. I'm not going to talk about this. In the past, I used to speak out, I used to speak the truth about things. And then I overcompensated whenever projections were, I was experiencing them or persecution or alienation, isolation, any of that. Um, and the psychological toll that it takes on them. As Cassandra evolves, though, one cultivates discernment around when to speak that truth and that knowledge and when not to, and then resting in that. And also, there is this empowerment that happens on that Cassandra journey as it evolves where it becomes the truth rest on its own. It doesn't need to be defended, right? Um, I think about the things that are going on politically, and I'll take it back to the Epstein survivors. Yes, they are advocating and they are speaking up, um, and they are speaking truth, yet they are not defending themselves. Whereas the people who have been exposed, what are they doing? They're talking about it ad nauseum. They're the victim. They are telling half truths. They're being deceptive. They are trying to spread propaganda, which is half truths, deception. They're doing it publicly, and that is an overcompensation of they know that what was expressed was the truth, right? And yet these women, they're not defending themselves. They just spoke the truth, right? They're not they're not defending themselves because the truth stands on its own. Whereas the flip side, the person who's lying is becoming super, talky about it all the time. It's a hoax. This is done to hurt me, to da 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 da, all of that. So there's this component that we can see. Um, some people might be having to make this choice of action, not speaking and resting in truth is a choice. And then we can also see this collectively unfold even more. And that's something that I wanted to point out with this lunation. So, which by the way, this full moon is conjunct um, the United States president's Cancer dynamics, FYI. So, meaning that Cassandra is squaring his Cancer stuff as well. So that's just food for thought. Um, to me, this full moon is really healing. Okay. It is definitely going to bring test for a lot of people. And how you know it's a test is it's like like I said, something you thought you were done with, it can surface because there's something there that still needs improvement. And that can be as simple as I'm applying wisdom from the past, and this is the choice that I'm making now. All right. So I hope you have a very happy full moon, and I will see you all soon.